Panzer Dragoon. As far as I'm concerned, this game is reason enough to own a Sega Saturn. That's impressive seeing as how it was a launch game in North America. The game is exhilarating from moment one, kicking things off with an epic cutscene followed by 6 levels, or episodes in this case, of white-knuckle intensity. Developed by Sega's very own Team Andromeda, on incomplete hardware no less, Panzer Dragoon is a 3D rail shooter. Some critics have dismissed it as a Space Harrier clone, but it bears a stronger resemblance to Star Fox on Super Nintendo. The 3D presentation, overall pacing, it's very similar, though Panzer Dragoon is way better. I know it's not a fair comparison, so let us forego the hate mail and lengthy comments explaining why Star Fox is the best rail shooter ever made. Anyway, one thing that sets Panzer Dragoon apart from other games in the genre is the story. It defies the arcade-like thrills ahead, setting up a war-torn future where an empire drunk with power discovers an ancient tower housing countless biological weapons used thousands of years prior. Meanwhile, 2 dragons are locked in aerial combat, witnessed by the lone survivor of a hunting party from below. The Blue Dragon's rider is mortally wounded and lands beside our lowly hunter. A psychic connection is made and the rider passes on his knowledge, telling the hunter not to let the Black Dragon reach the tower. Said hunter arms himself, saddles up, and our journey finally begins. Admittedly, the narrative is far from original. We're all familiar with evil empires, devastating weapons capable of destroying mankind, and unlikely heroes facing impossible odds. Regardless, it's told very well, loaded with iconic imagery and outstanding art direction. Like many Saturn games, the cutscenes don't really fill the screen. This is a common complaint among fans as well as detractors. Personally, I couldn't care less. It would have been nice had they been full screen, certainly, but they look great in spite of this. As much as people whine about the FMV, you'd think they were watching a VCD or VHS tape. Like I said, it's a rail shooter. There are 6 episodes, or 7 if one counts the last where you face the dreaded Black Dragon. Oh hell no, before we even tackle that monstrosity, there's a vast array of secondary creatures and fighters you gotta mess with. Everything from ghastly mutations to the wicked Imperial battle fleet. You'll engage them over barren wastelands teeming with giant sandworms and tornadoes, a vast ocean littered with ancient ruins, perilous caverns guarded by the Empire, and so on. No 2 episodes look alike, and many of the enemies are unique to their respective stages, giving us plenty of variety from one episode to the next. Now, at the end of every stage, we're greeted by a boss. Some are small and agile, others are gigantic and deal some serious damage. Enemies attack from all sides, leading us to Panzer Dragoon's one key innovation. Tapping either shoulder button will make the rider face the corresponding direction as the dragon continues onward, making for some dynamic and fresh action sequences. You need to keep an eye on that radar, let me tell you. Unless you've played this numerous times, there's no way in hell you're going to slip into autopilot. Even though I've played this countless times, I always get caught up in the action at some point, forgetting I need to watch my rear at every turn. Your only weapons are the blaster and the dragon's laser attack, which can lock onto as many as 8 adversaries, or blast points depending on the size. This is accomplished by holding down the fire button. Once you've locked your targets, release that button and unleash holy havoc. So much awesome. The visuals were stunning for the time. Panzer Dragoon uses texture map polygon renderings as well as sprite scaling and rotation effects to achieve its visuals, giving us a good taste of what the Saturn was capable of. Really, this should have been the pack-in game. Not to say Virtua Fighter was bad, but the Saturn port was riddled with glitches due to its rushed development, and Virtua Fighter 2 had come out a few months prior to the North American Saturn launch. Virtua Fighter didn't look all that fresh then. Sega was all about bringing the arcade experience home, so it made sense that they'd want an arcade port as their pack-in. That being said, Panzer Dragoon has plenty of thrills comparable to some of the best quarter munchers of the day, all while demonstrating the system's superior graphics. Not to mention the sound. This soundtrack is bitchin'. The title track has the sweeping majesty of a classic adventure film, though many pieces rock synthesized theatrics reminiscent of Tangerine Dream scores from the 80s. My absolute favorite is Episode 3. Then we have the sound effects. Every laser blast, explosion, and defiant cry of your dragon is crisp. Nothing sounds as if it's been recycled from other games, giving Panzer Dragoon a distinctive voice. Really, if you're gonna play Panzer Dragoon, play it loud. Screw you, Mario. The first 2 episodes may seem like a cakewalk at first, but that will change with Episode 3. The action intensifies considerably, bombarding you with enemies and projectiles. It may not be bullet hell, no, that won't come until Episode 4. Yeah, it may as well be a ride. For the longest time, I could never pass this stage. Even on the easy setting, I rarely made it to the Guardian. Once I managed to beat this big beast, all I got was a screen telling me to play it at a higher difficulty. Do forgive the lack of video reference. I haven't played this on easy in God knows how long. Just trust me, it happens. Which brings us to the difficulty. It's been said many times that Panzer Dragoon is way too hard. Clearly, these critics never played Duke Nukem 3D on Sega Genesis. Yes, I dug it, but it's one of the hardest games I've ever beaten. Panzer Dragoon is definitely challenging, though far from impossible. The learning curve is fair and balanced, upping the ante gradually as you progress. It's not like we went from this to this. If that were the case, I'd be inclined to agree. Instead, the game eases you into it at a steady pace, unlike Afterburner 2, where it's pure mayhem from stage 2 onward. Yeah, this dragon ain't got nothing on that Tomcat. One other thing that makes it seem so demanding is the lack of lives. All you get are continues, so it's back to the beginning of whatever stage you're on whenever you die. Kind of sucks, but that's the point. It pushes you forward and makes you a stronger player because of it. Besides, depending on how many enemies you perish, you earn more continues. How is that for incentive to play better? If that isn't enough, the only way you'll see the true ending is if you win on the hardest setting. Trust me, after you've played the sequels, you'll be back and more determined than ever. In my opinion, Panzer Dragoon is pure fucking excellence. It's fun, highly addictive, and very rewarding. This game is essential to any Saturn newcomer's library, as are its sequels.